3 Sinister pit stops, discover the spine-chilling, haunted stories of the unexplained dangers. Jenna's heart raced as she flicked the last light off in the diner, leaving behind the warm glow that had filled the room just moments ago. She was just a single mother, trying to get by, yet the shadows of Maplewood felt deeper and darker than ever before. The traveler loomed over her like a storm cloud threatening to burst, fed by whispered fears that had spread like wildfire after a string of disappearances. She clutched her car keys, hoping they would shield her from whatever horrors might lurk in the night. As her children Lucy and Ben played, their laughter floated in the air, a fragile bubble of joy in an undercurrent of dread that buzzed like static. The sun dipped below the horizon, bathing the streets in an eerie twilight glow. Nearby mothers exchanged nervous glances, the sound of their idle chatter quickly morphing into sinister gossip about a man in a tattered coat. The rumors ran thick how he had offered rides in exchange for help with his broken-down vehicle. Each word hung heavily, like an iron weight pressing on Jenna's chest. "Did you hear?" one mother whispered, voice lowering conspiratorially. "Saw him lurking at the park last week, watching the kids. Creeped me out." The charm of community quickly unraveled into pure panic. Jenna felt the sharp claws of anxiety grip her heart as she watched Lucy and Ben spin around blissfully unaware. But with every giggle, the murmur of danger crept closer, wrapping around her like a noose. Could her safe suburb harbor shadows that whispered of evil? Later that night, the diner was uncharacteristically quiet. She scrubbed the last table, her muscles aching, the clatter of dishes the only sound breaking the silence. The streetlights flickered outside, their glow sending shadows flickering on the walls. It felt wrong to be alone, like an invitation for something dark to approach. And then it happened, her car sputtered and died on a lonely back road. Panic set in as she fumbled for her phone only to find no signal. Darkness seeped into the car, turning the air cold, then, headlights pierced the night, a car with an unsettling grin. It pulled up beside her, the driver's smile making her skin prickle. The man looked like he belonged in her nightmares, wearing a tattered coat and an eerie, almost hypnotic smile. "Need a hand?" His voice was calm, but panic surged through her veins. Ignoring the tremble in her hands, Jenna wrestled against the primal urge to scream. The man leaned closer, and that was when the true horror hit her like a punch to the gut. "I know all about Lucy and Ben," he said, voice dipping low, dripping with malice. Before she could muster breath, she bolted from the car, fear wrapping around her like a vice. Her heart hammered as she sprinted toward home, eyes wide, scanning every shadow. The comforting glow of lights turned into pools of dread as she reached her street. The faces she once trusted washed in darkness, unwelcoming and unforgiving. Every house she passed felt like a prison, locking her out as if she were the intruder. Desperation clawed at her throat when she finally found Melissa. Instead of the reassuring smile she'd expect, her friend's expression morphed into something cold, calculating. "Jenna, you shouldn't have been out there," she said, the warmth replaced with a chilling note. Jenna's gut twisted as realization struck. Melissa had been feeding information, her secret weapon turned traitor. The night deepened, shrouded in shadows and secrets, leaving Jenna with one agonizing thought: could she truly escape this new nightmare, or had she already walked into a trap, surrounded by those she thought she'd known? Jenna stumbled back, heart racing, the cold air biting at her skin as if mocking her fear. "What do you mean?" she gasped, her breath clouding in the night. Melissa stepped forward, shadowed by the porch light, her eyes glinting with an unsettling intensity. "You can't be so reckless," Melissa replied softly, her tone almost sympathetic. "You don't know what he can do, what we've all done to survive." Flashes of betrayal pierced through Jenna's mind, confusion clouding her thoughts. She searched Melissa's face for an explanation, desperately hoping to see a trace of the friend she thought she knew. But all she found was a stranger standing in that familiar doorway. "Who's we?" Jenna's voice trembled despite her efforts to sound firm. Melissa leaned closer, her breath now a whisper. "Those who've made a deal." Melissa paused, the weight of her words hanging heavy in the damp air. "We're all in this together, Jenna. There's no escaping him. Not anymore." Panic surged anew as Jenna backed away, every instinct screaming at her to run. "You don't have to do this. We can fight back." She felt the last remaining threads of hope tugging at her, urging her to pull Melissa back from the brink. But the darkness shrouded in her friend's eyes only deepened. "Fight? You don't even understand who you're dealing with," Melissa scoffed, the steel in her voice cutting through Jenna's heart like a knife. "He's everywhere. He knows everything." The world around Jenna constricted, fear was no longer confined to mere shadows lurking in the night. It was a pulsing entity that surrounded her now, a tightening noose cloaked in familiar faces. The laughter of her children echoed in her mind, taunting her with their innocence. Before she could think, she turned on her heel, desperate to flee the betrayal pulsing in the air. She ran, scrambling down the street, treading on gravel and grass, hoping her feet would carry her far from this treachery. But the night was alive with murmurs and nervous glances from windows as she sprinted past houses. It felt as if the entire neighborhood was complicit, drawn into the web of darkness woven by the traveler. She didn't dare stop until she reached the alleyway behind the diner, her chest heaving with desperation. Peering into the darkness, Jenna felt a strange sense of vertigo. It was quiet. Too quiet. The weight of silence pressed in, a heavy cloak wrapping around her mind. She felt like prey, hunted and exposed in an unyielding world. Her hand trembled as she raised her phone to check for signals. Nothing. A sudden movement caught her eye at the end of the alley. The flicker of cloth in the shadows sent her heart rocketing. Jenna ducked behind a dumpster, her breath caught in her throat. The outlines of figures emerged, whispering among themselves, voices low and conspiratorial. She strained to hear. "No, we can't keep letting her do as she pleases," a gruff voice said, the discontent palpable in his tone. "The traveler will punish us all. Perhaps this is the only way." "It's for the greater good," another voice interjected, crawling under her skin like something alive. Jenna's skin prickled with apprehension. They were plotting. But against whom? Her breath caught as the shadows began to shift, and every fiber in her being told her to run. Just as she turned, a figure stepped into the light, and reality crashed down around her. The unmistakable tall man with the tattered coat stood at the mouth of the alley, the haunting grin frozen across his face. "Looking for something, Jenna?" he asked, voice smooth yet dripping with malice. Terror coursed through her, terror that reached deep into her bones. She felt the walls closing in, the air growing thin, and the once familiar streets transformed into a nightmarish labyrinth. Was this really the end? Or had she finally uncovered the truth of Maplewood? Fleeing was no longer an option. She had to confront this evil. But at what cost? As the darkness loomed, Jenna realized she had to make a choice, one that could change everything she thought she knew. Would she defy the odds or succumb to the sinister pull of the shadows? The question hung heavy in the air. When the moment came, would she be strong enough to rise or break down under the crushing weight of despair? Jenna's heart hammered against her ribs as the tall man stepped further into the alley, his grin twisting her stomach into knots. She could feel his gaze piercing through her, chilling her deeper than the night air. She couldn't move, caught in the web of his presence like a moth before a flame. "Why are you here, Jenna?" he asked, his voice a low drawl that sent shivers cascading down her spine. "You've misplaced your trust, haven't you?" Cold realization washed over her like ice water. Melissa had warned her. The truth clawed at her throat, suffocating her. She had been so absorbed in her need to escape, she hadn't considered the true danger that lurked around her, the trust she placed in others. Desperation burned in her chest, forcing her to speak. "Let them go," she shouted, her voice echoing off the damp brick walls, the ring of fear palpable in her tone. "Whatever you're planning, you can't use them." The man's laughter reverberated against the walls, a sound more sinister than she had imagined. "Ah, but you see, Jenna. They are already part of my game." "And you?" He took a step closer, the stench of decay mingling with the overpowering odor of the alley. "You're just another pawn." Despair looped around her, tightening like a vice. The shadows began to writhe, the faint outlines of her neighbors now looming figures, their eyes glassy and vacant, like puppets whose strings had been pulled by the unseen master. "Join us, Jenna," the tall man whispered, his voice smooth like honey, but laced with venom. "Embrace the darkness. Save them. Or let them suffer the consequences of your defiance." "No," she replied, shaking her head furiously, determination sparking amidst the dread. She had to fight, there had to be another way. With every ounce of will, she pushed back against the boiling waves of panic. Suddenly, a rush of adrenaline shot through her. Jenna turned and dashed down the alley, adrenaline coursing through her veins as she sprinted. She heard footsteps behind her, chasing her down like a predator after prey. Her legs burned as she rounded a corner and stumbled onto a deserted street, the chilling echo of her heartbeats reverberating in her ears. Jenna darted across the asphalt, the moonlight illuminating the path ahead, but it only revealed more darkness. She had to find safety. She needed answers. She couldn't let fear dictate her anymore. Her phone buzzed again in her pocket. The screen was shattered, but as she glanced down, she saw a message flash, flickering on just long enough to read, "Trust no one." She skidded to a stop, breathless, panting heavily. The weight of her own uncertainty crashed over her, threatening to drown her deeper in despair. Who could she trust? Was there anyone left? Suddenly, a voice broke through her thoughts. "Jenna." It was Melissa, her voice frantic. The shadows poured out before her, figures emerging from the depths. "You have to come back. You don't understand. You have to choose." Jenna felt the cold fingers of fear clutch her once more, but a flicker of hope sparked within her. If she returned, could she find a way to save them? Or would it seal their doom? A choice loomed ahead, one that would either unleash a new horror or finally expose the sinister truth. Jenna took a breath, steeling herself for the decision that would change everything. As she turned to face the encroaching darkness, the unseen force coiling around them, she felt the weight of fate resting on her shoulders. Would she embrace the dark? Or would she uncover the light before it was too late? With the choice at her fingertips, terror wrapped around her mind, the darkness swelling with potential. What awaited her path? Jenna's breath came in ragged gasps as she reconsidered the darkness creeping closer, drawing her thoughts into the void. Her instincts screamed at her to run away from the gathering shadows, yet Melissa's frantic plea anchored her. The choice weighed heavily. Run blindly or confront whatever wickedness lay ahead. Melissa was there, losing herself in the brimming chaos, shadows curling around her limbs like hungry vines. Jenna's heart crackled with urgency. "What do you mean I have to choose?" she shouted, her voice trembling. "Choose what?" The tall man emerged at her back, his presence a looming specter of dread. "Choose wisely, or they will pay the price." His breath brushed against her ear, thick and heavy with menace. "Jenna." Melissa's eyes glimmered, somehow full of fear and hope. "You have to see what he wants." "You don't know." A loud crack interrupted her, a sound like a distant gunshot. Jenna's head whipped around, sensing danger emanating from every shadow. An unseen force tugged at her consciousness, pulling her toward the looming darkness. "Help them," the tall man urged, his voice curling around her mind like smoke. "No." Jenna's voice broke through, a wild desperation steering her thoughts. "You're lying." Time slowed. Jenna barely heard Melissa's scream. The shadows surged forward, filling the alley behind Jenna, swallowing the little light that remained. She turned back to face the menacing figure just as the air around them changed, filled with the heaviness of a storm. Jenna's instincts screamed to run, but she couldn't ignore the faces of her friends, twisted, drained, hollowed out by a presence she had yet to understand. In a surge of defiance, Jenna pierced the thick tension with her words. I want to join you. The conviction laced through her voice echoed against the walls. The tall man's smile faded, replaced by dark fury. Then you have doomed them all. He lunged forward, and Jenna stumbled back, her eyes scanning for an escape. The alley was no longer just an alley, it twisted and turned, warping under the pressure of her fear. She darted through a narrow opening, her heart pounding like a drum. Silence fell, echoing in her ears like an accusation as shadows shifted, their shapes breathing life into the unknown. But even in the silence, Jenna could feel them. The spectators. They watched, waiting for a decision. For her weakness, Jenna pressed onward, praying for clarity, desperate for any sign. What do I do? She whispered to herself, panic bubbling beneath her skin. Her surroundings blurred as she ran, the distant thrum of footsteps reminding her of the hunter behind her. Jenna. Another voice joined Melissa's, sharp like glass. Stand and fight. Blinded by dread, Jenna shook her head. Fight what? But in that moment of uncertainty, a spark ignited. Focusing on that spark, she slowed her racing heart and recalled snippets of conversation she'd had with Melissa about the dark things lurking in their town, the horror stories shared under flickering streetlights. Beware the trust you place, she remembered. The very trust that had drawn her here was the very treachery that could consume her. But if that was true, who stood beside her now? As if conjured by her thoughts, a rustling behind her sent a bolt of electric fear coursing through her. She turned, her breath catching. Shapes materialized out of the shadows, faces she recognized but expressions she didn't see, a twisted semblance of the people she once knew. Was this the consequence of her rebellion? A whispered warning turned chilling as they moved closer. Jenna, join us, they chorused, words dripping with an otherworldly echo. Heart hammering, Jenna felt the world tilting beneath her. This was not just a fight for survival, it was a battle for her soul. With the choice hanging heavier in the air than ever, Jenna sensed the moment slipping away. She had to decide now: would she stand against the gathering darkness, or would she let them fall? The shadows hung thick like suffocating smoke. A new resolve surged within her, but was it too late to save anyone? As the figures loomed closer, an icy dread unfurled in her chest. But beneath that dread lay the last remnants of trust, scattered like ashes in the wind. Who will betray me? She choked out, her voice barely above a whisper, rising against the tide of darkness. The question rang sharply in the silence that followed, a heavy burden left to hover ominously. Would the answer lie within the forest of shadows or beyond the alley's edge? The darkness pressed tighter, wrapping around Jenna like a hug from the grave. Fear sloshed within her like a tidal wave threatening to crash. She took a step back, the cutting gazes of her friends disassembling her resolve piece by piece. They weren't the people she knew anymore, their sunny smiles had morphed into hollow grins, eyes wide and overflowing with darkness. Join us, they echoed again, voices layered, joined by shadows that rippled in a grotesque dance. Stop! Jenna screamed, desperation crackling in her breath. She stumbled backward, her body colliding with the cold, damp brick wall behind her, the thrum of life still pulsing in her veins, urging her to break free. No, Jenna, the tall man whispered from her side, his breath stinking of decay. This is your path now. Look at them. They are lost. The figure's words sunk into her brain like nails through wood. Each pulse seemed to resonate with her heartbeat, synchronized in an unsettling rhythm. A part of her believed it. What if they were truly lost? A frigid weight settled like lead in her stomach, twisting her thoughts dark and sinister. Fight! The voice of Melissa cut through, raw and urgent, boiling over with a promise. Don't give in to the illusions. Jenna turned, seeking her friend's face amidst the chaos, but those shadows were closing in, hungry and relentless. What do I do? Jenna cried again, her voice cracking as she clutched the sides of her head, drowning in conflicting emotions. Choose. Melissa's voice was barely a whisper now, smothered by the oppressive gloom. Choose us and you'll find a way. Choose what? Jenna shouted, fury and fear spiraling into a whirlwind within her. I can't choose anything. You're not, you don't even look like. But then Jenna remembered what Melissa had said about trusting the wrong things. Her heart thudded painfully against her ribs, and the realization struck like a bolt of lightning. Perhaps every person echoing in this darkness was a facade, a puppet strung by unseen hands. But how could she fight shadows with doubt? A sharp laugh resonated out of the darkness, slicing through her thoughts. Doubt is your greatest enemy, Jenna, the tall man said, his shadow elongating, stretching towards her, a dark finger beckoning her closer. Do you want this? He asked, eyes glinting with malice. Do you want their fate? Join them. Embrace the darkness. The walls around her seemed to pulse in rhythm with his words, thumping like a heartbeat. Jenna felt the edges of her sanity fraying, memories of laughter and love blending into something grotesque beneath the pressure of eternity stretching out before her. Embrace it. The echoes beckoned in concert. We are your family now, no. Jenna screamed, clawing back against the crushing despair. You are liars. Then, an enraged roar ripped through the silence, the shadows recoiling as if struck. A sudden surge of light erupted like a flare, piercing through the darkness and illuminating the alley in a blinding flash. Jenna shielded her eyes, heart pounding with a flicker of hope amidst the chaos. Fight for your soul. A deep voice boomed, vibrating through her like an earthquake, rattling the world as if turning the tables on her nemesis. As Jenna's vision cleared, fragmented glimpses of other shadows emerged, a gathering of figures not yet twisted, still whole, standing strong against the encroaching darkness. Join us. They shouted back at her, their faces echoing encouragement dawning on her mind. In that moment, choice unfurled like a blooming flower, beauty amidst decay. Faster than light, Jenna felt the beginnings of resolve stir within her heart, but the tall man's laughter spiraled back, taunting and relentless. You think you can break free? You don't even know what you've awakened. They won't let you go. Sweat dripped down Jenna's back, her decisions crystallizing but shrouded in deadly uncertainty. Shadows writhed closer, hoarding every fragment of clarity she fought to grasp. Choose, Jenna, or lose all you love. Her breath quickened, the weight of two choices hammering at her chest. As the shadows made their final advance, Jenna shouted into the chaos, I choose. But what will it cost me? The darkness hesitated, an ominous stillness fell over the alley, and her heart raced as the echoes offered one last entreaty, you shall find out soon enough. Was it too late to fight? Would she pay the ultimate price for her defiance? The question echoed in the night as shadows circled like vultures, leaving her suffocated in the mystery of her fate. The shadows lurked, pulsing like a living thing, and for a moment, silence draped over Jenna like a suffocating blanket. But the stillness cracked and splintered under the pressure of her fear. Fight. You have to fight. Melissa cried again, desperation weaving urgency into her words. Jenna's eyes darted between the dark figures, their hollow eyes gazing into her soul, penetrating, prying apart the very essence of her being. With a shaky breath, Jenna screamed, What do you want from me? The words hung in the air, heavy with dread. The tall man stepped closer, his shadow swallowing the last traces of light. Your submission, Jenna. Embrace our power and you'll never be alone again, he said, the promise dripping like poison, sweet but lethal. No. Jenna gasped, shaking her head furiously, her heart drumming against her ribs. I want to join you. The shadows lunged forward, clawing and stretching like starved beasts, reaching out to claim her. Jenna felt their icy touch brush against her skin as she stumbled backwards, away from the gathering wave of darkness. Her eyes caught movement near the edge of, what felt like, an abyss. Figures pushed against the wall, pleading silently, despair etched on their faces. They were the remnants of her friends, reflections of the lives they once had, now fading into the void. Help us, Jenna. They mouthed, voices lost in the clamor of the shadows. Their once vibrant colors were muted, now nothing more than shades, shrouded in an all-consuming gray. Jenna's heart splintered in two. She could feel the tightening grip of shadows at her ankles, pulling her down, but in that moment, an ember of anger ignited inside her. "No! You won't take me!" Jenna cried out, her voice raw and wild as she wrestled against the dark tendrils wrapping tighter. She felt the heat of rebellion flooding her veins, fueling her resolve. "Release them!" she shouted, directing the command at the tall man, who, for a brief moment, faltered, the shadows wavering like a flame in the wind. "Foolish girl!" His laughter resonated, mocking, echoing around the alley as the shadows swirled, feeding off her fear. "You think your will can stop us? Feel the darkness, it only gets stronger." As if in response, the walls of the alley seemed to lean in, pressing Jenna with an unbearable weight, squeezing her breath into shallow gasps. Ghostly figures of her friends danced around her, stretching out bony hands in an anguished chorus. "Join us, Jenna. Let us guide you. You can still be free," they whispered in harmony, their voices now hauntingly beautiful, twirling through her mind, luring her into a trance. "No!" she shouted, clenching her fists, nails biting into her palms like an anchor against despair. "You're not real. You're just lies." The shadows recoiled again as if her words were daggers. But a sinister growl vibrated beneath her feet, and the alley erupted into writhing chaos. The tall man stepped closer, eyes glowing with an insatiable hunger that pierced through her. "Very well," he sneered, anticipation blooming in the air. "Let us see how much you're willing to sacrifice to hold on to your fading hope." Jenna's breath quickened, heart racing as she sensed a shift, a darker undertone underlying the tall man's words. She heard a frenzied whisper in her ear, a twisted promise: "Choose wisely, for the cost may be unbearable." Suddenly, a wisp of light flickered at the end of the alley, barely visible through the advancing shadows. Jenna's heart surged. Was it salvation or just another trick? Her decision loomed like a thunderstorm ready to break. "Get away from me!" she yelled, and with a fierce determination to fight, she surged forward toward the light, every step a battle against the dark tendrils ensnaring her. But as she approached, the tall man's laughter echoed louder, discordant and chilling. "You think you can escape? The darkness is always waiting just behind you." Jenna's heart raced as she felt a pull, almost magnetic, dragging her back toward the shadows. The light flickered, dimming with each step she took. The alley twisted, walls collapsing inward, and she felt the insistent grasp of the void tightening around her. Would this be her end? Could she really defy something that felt so ancient, so deeply entwined with her very existence? Jenna hesitated, the light dancing like a flickering candle now. As the shadows closed in, one question echoed in her mind, terrifying yet liberating: would she dare confront the darkness, or accept her fate as another lost soul? The choice was looming, and the shadows laughed, ever hungry, ever patient. Jenna's breath caught. The light ahead pulsed gently, like a heartbeat, a beacon of hope strangely at odds with the chaos surrounding her. Still, the shadows didn't relent. They lunged at her, faster, more feral, their whispers rising in a crescendo of torment. Each voice clawed at her mind, tearing at her resolve, weaving a tapestry of despair. "You will join us, Jenna. We own you forever." She fought through the clutches of fear. "No!" she yelled, her voice bouncing off the walls, clashing with the malevolent laughter of the tall man. "I want to let you take me." With a sudden burst of adrenaline, Jenna sprinted towards the light, desperate to escape the grasping darkness threatening to engulf her. The alley warped around her, twisting as if it knew she was fleeing. Just as she neared the glow, an unseen force slammed into her from all sides, pushing her backward. The shadows roared, their collective rage echoing off the alley's damp walls. The flickering light seemed to dim, and Jenna felt her heart plummet. Would she be swallowed whole by the shadows? In a moment of clarity, she turned her head back, searching behind her. In the darkness, she saw the faces of her friends, their eyes wide with a mix of fear and expectation. Help us save yourself, they murmured, a haunting melody laced with desperation. Stop! She cried, drowning out their pleas. I refuse to be like you. Something snapped in the tall man's cool demeanor. He stepped forward, anger radiating off him, his shadow extending like a dark wave. You think you can escape this fate? You're nothing without your acceptance. We will feast on your fear until there is nothing left. Panic surged in her chest. She stumbled, but instinctively, her hands shot out, gripping onto the cool, damp bricks for stability. With a heave of determination, Jenna yanked herself back up, into the embrace of the broken light. It flared brilliantly for an instant, illuminating a path that seemed to beckon her. Just a little longer, she whispered to herself, each breath a battle against despair. The whispers intensified, scratching at her mind like nails on glass. Join us, Jenna. You need us. We're your true friends. They pleaded, but their voices twisted into a dissonant choir that threatened to tear her apart. With horror, she felt the shadows clutching at her ankles, sizzling cold against her skin. She mustered every ounce of willpower left in her body. You won't control me. Bursting forward, she lunged towards the light, praying it would guide her home, wherever that was. As she neared, an invisible wall slammed into her, sending sparks of pain leaping through her limbs. The tall man loomed above her, arms outstretched, claiming ownership of the darkness. Stop, Jenna. You cannot break the bond. You are already ours. But this time, she fought back. I am not a pawn in your game. She screamed hoarsely, channeling every ounce of fight she had into those words. The light dimmed again, flickering uncertainly as the shadows roared in protest. Just as she felt the overwhelming weight of despair threatening to pull her under, Jenna took one last leap, fueled by the desperation of her friends, the spark of defiance raging within her. Suddenly, the shadows unleashed a piercing shriek, a sound raw and terrible, a final plea for her surrender. The alley trembled beneath the force, and Jenna felt herself lifted slightly as if backed by a wave of energy. The light surged behind her, brighter but also warmer, and for a fleeting moment, she thought she saw a face within it. A face of strength, filled with compassion and untold stories, but the shadows weren't done yet. With a final surge of darkness, they grasped the edges of her consciousness, pulling her back, deeper into the void, sowing the seeds of doubt that wriggled like insects in her mind. You can't escape. You don't even know what you're running from. What if you're too late? In that moment, a question lingered, heavy with dread and uncertainty. Was there truly hope waiting for her, or just another layer of horror? As the light flickered again, she grappled with the idea that she might not be the only one fighting here. And then, just as her fingers grazed the flickering warmth, the shadows howled like a storm unleashed, and she found herself standing at a crossroads, uncertain of which path would lead her to freedom or bring her to an even darker fate. Jenna's heart raced as the shadows clawed at her from every angle, writhing like serpents hungry for flesh. The light behind her flickered violently, momentarily illuminating the alley like a flash of lightning, scattering the darkness around her. But it was just as quick to recede, leaving her enveloped in a chilling void once more. The tall man's voice sliced through the air, sharper now. You cannot resist what is already yours. His laughter bounced off the grim walls, echoing in her skull, and the whispers began again, relentless. They wormed into her mind, planting seeds of despair. Images of her friends twisted in agony, lost in the shadows, swirled in her thoughts. She staggered backward, fear weighing heavy in her chest. No. You're not real. She screamed, even as doubt gnawed at her resolve. Wasn't this what they always said? That the deeper you looked into the darkness, the more it stared back? Just as her vision blurred, the light flared once more, a beacon, defiantly flickering against the ravenous shadows. It seemed alive, almost pulsing with energy, drawing her in with the promise of hope. Go! The voice within the light urged. Run! Determination surged, and with a deep breath, Jenna launched herself toward the warmth, each step slipping through murky shadows that bared their teeth. Pain lanced through her limbs as their icy fingers dragged against her skin, seeking to pull her back into their sprawling depths. "Give in. You belong to us, Jenna." They hissed, the combined whispers forming an insidious chorus. Each word sank into her mind, urging her to relent, to accept their twisted fate. "No." She forced the plea back, turning the pain into fuel as she approached the bright halo. "You can't have me." But the shadows were relentless. They morphed, combining into towering forms, their eyes glowing like embers, watching her struggle with a hunger that was palpable in the air. "You're just a scared little girl." The tall man stepped forward, his voice a sneer layered with mock pity. "You think you're special? You're just like them, like all of us." At that moment, she caught a glimpse of her friends, trapped within the undulating dark, their faces twisted with hopelessness, hands reaching out in a futile attempt to escape. "Help us, Jenna!" It was a chant now, one that thudded in rhythm with her racing heart. "No!" she yelled, shaking her head violently. They were not her friends anymore, they were shadows stripped of their humanity, lost to this curse. In the flickering glow, Jenna saw a door emerge, half hidden in the chaos. Its surface shone, almost as if it recognized her struggle. Her gut turned, it felt wrong, like an illusion. But it was the only choice, the only way out. "Now!" the voice urged again, snapping her focus back. Using every ounce of strength, Jenna sprinted toward the door, the shadows shrieking behind her with a fury that threatened to overwhelm. "Jenna! Come back!" the tall man's voice bellowed. The darkness surged, trying to engulf her as she reached for the handle. Just as she grasped it, a searing pain shot through her arm, the shadows biting into her flesh. She yanked the door open, adrenaline coursing through her veins. The world beyond glimmered, yet it reflected a reality that was just as warped. The countryside now lay barren, trees gnarled and twisted, like skeletal hands reaching for the sky. An endless expanse stretched before her, foreboding and desolate. "Welcome back," the voice whispered from behind her, sickly sweet and dripping with malice. The door slammed shut as she turned, gasping as the shadows gathered again, swirling in a darkness thicker than before. Escape was never an option, the tall man's silhouette loomed in the distance, fingers tipping like claws. "Now, you face the true horror of your choices." A chill enveloped her, leaving Jenna trembling. Was this beyond the door the real world or another layer of the nightmare? The shadows began to inch closer, their whispers laced with promises and threats. Would she find the courage to confront them again, or would she succumb to their grasp? Just as she prepared to run, a chilling thought struck her: what if someone she once knew emerged from the shadows, waiting to drag her back into the depths? As the whispers intensified, she felt the air thicken, the darkness pressing against her sanity. Would she find allies in the desolation, or would she be lost to the same haunting fate as her friends? The final choice was coming, and the darkness waited, hungry for her decision. The shadows retreated, then surged, a relentless tide of malice that twisted through the barren landscape. Jenna's breath became shallow, each inhale tasting of fear and decay. She stumbled backward, legs trembling beneath her. What was this place? The silence screamed, broken only by the low murmur of the shadows creeping ever closer, melding into one another, forming grotesque shapes that encircled her. Their presence was suffocating, wrapping around her throat like a noose, threatening to draw her in. Jenna, a warped voice drifted from the darkness, the name barely recognizable, each syllable twisted like a knife. That voice. Kathy? She blinked, fighting to clear the haze of fear clouding her vision, straining to distinguish who or what was emerging from the black. The shape shifted, taking on a familiar silhouette. "Help me, Jenna!" the soft plea echoed in her mind, mixing with the chanting whispers of the others. "No. You're not real." She stumbled back, but a flicker of uncertainty crept in. The last time she saw Kathy, they'd been laughing together. Now this twisted echo felt like a tug on her heart, pulling her with cruel force. "Join us," the shadows hissed all at once. We can save you. No. Jenna shouted, fingers digging into her palms, nails biting into her skin. She refused to succumb to their lies. You're not my friends, you're not real. Turn around. Jenna, chills raced down her spine as she heard another voice, this one deeper, more menacing. The tall man was here, lurking just beyond the edge of the darkness. Eyes glinted like shards of glass in the shadows, filled with an insatiable hunger. You should see what you've missed. His voice was sinuous, curling around her mind like smoke, oily and suffocating. Your choice will free you in a moment. He stepped closer, the shadows parting like a curtain, revealing a scene beyond comprehension. Jenna gasped, eyes widening. It was the town she knew, her home, now twisted into something grotesque. Buildings crumbled, windows shattered, and the streets once filled with laughter now echoed with wails of despair. Look at what waits for you, Jenna. He motioned toward the carnage, features twisted in delight. Doesn't it make you want to join them? They are waiting. No. She screamed, shaking her head fiercely, trembling under the weight of what lay before her. You're lying. Am I? The tall man leaned closer, his breath foul and penetrating. Your friends are here, lost and longing for your strength. They need you, Jenna. Like a spotlight igniting the corners of her thoughts, she remembered the shared dreams, the endless nights of laughter that had once filled her life with color. Was this a chance to save them? Or was this simply another trap? Join us, Jenna. The chorus of voices clung to her like a second skin, wrapping her in memories tainted by despair. But even through the confusion, the slivers of hope pierced through. She remembered the warmth, the laughter. If they were still in there, trapped, could she really give up? Fight. A sudden realization hit her. It was a game, a sick game of tug-o-war, and she wasn't the plaything. She wouldn't be swallowed by the despair twisting around her. Yet as resolve filled her, a dreadful sound came from behind, snapping branches, crunching stones, a shift in the very air she breathed. Don't. The voice was low and dangerous, a warning dripping with malice. Before she could react, a figure emerged from the shadows. Freedom doesn't come without sacrifice, Jenna. It was someone else, a stranger, but their eyes were familiar, laced with sorrow and desperation. You cannot save them all. Panic surged in her veins. Who was this new threat? Time to choose. The tall man beckoned, fingers digging deep into the darkness. The shadows grow weary of your indecision. As Jenna stood trembling, the dance of shadows all around her began to pulse like a heart, waiting for her answer. Would she surrender to the despair, or would she fight against a fate worse than death? What if in making her choice, she would unleash a horror even beyond what the shadows offered? Swallowing hard, she prepared to shout out a response, praying it would be the right one. What awaited beyond the veil of darkness? The shadows seemed to lean in closer, anticipating her answer, hungry for the chaos that was about to unfold. Jenna stood at the edge of the abyss, shadows swirling hungrily around her. Time froze, breath hitching in her throat as those twisted faces melted into one, a grotesque representation of everything she feared. But deep within her, a fire ignited, boiling up from the pit of despair that had long threatened to consume her. No! She screamed, voice echoing against the walls of darkness, carrying defiance. You can't take me. I am not yours. The tall man laughed, the sound slicing through the night, chilling her bones. You're just one voice, Jenna. The darkness is everywhere. You are surrounded. Then let us see how strong it really is. She shouted, pulling herself upright, confronting the shadows that coiled and squirmed. As they lunged toward her, she felt bolstered by a tide of memories. Images swirled in her heart: Lucy and Ben's laughter, Melissa's comfort, the warmth of community. She held on to the remnants of what made her real, what gave her power. Join us, the shadows hissed, their voices almost seductive, plucking at the chords of her heart. But with every pulse of darkness, Jenna felt a surge within herself, a longing for the light she dared not let dim under their weight. I won join. Her voice rose, much stronger this time, resonating through the gathering storm. I will fight. She braced herself, launching toward the flickering light pulsing toward her from the depth of the darkness. I choose hope. I choose my family. A crackling energy enveloped her as she neared the light. The shadows screeched, recoiling as if burned, hold weakened by her conviction. Fleeting figures of her friends surrounded her, eyes pleading, drifting ethereally. Jenna, please, they whispered, voices trembling, but she pushed back against their whispers. You're not what you used to be. She cried out to them, boldness rising in waves. But I will remember you. You are not lost. It is time to awaken. Fight back with me. The pulse of the light beckoned her, the swirling shadow bending in response, reluctant and anxious. The faces of her friends shimmered, one moment hopeful, the next twisted in the grip of despair, but within them, Jenna saw glimmers of resolve sparking against the suffocating darkness. With every ounce of will, she reached toward the center of the light, where the remnants of their true selves flickered like flames eager for air. You can beat this. Together. Release us. A voice cried, emerging among the darkness and shimmering lights. It was Melissa. Jenna, please. Summoning all the strength she could muster, Jenna broke through the veil, thrusting her arms forward in a gesture of unity. Together. She declared again, desperate yet resolute. In that instant, a radiant burst erupted, illuminating every corner, burning bright against the shadows. The grip of darkness faltered as Jenna's friends surged forward, hands interlacing with hers. Every touch felt electric, mimicking the fight building within her. Through the light, she saw clarity. The faces of Lucy and Ben, of Melissa, all glowing, radiating with familiar warmth. They reflected back the strength and love she always believed in. We are family. We fight together. You are not lost. And in that moment of collective will, shadows shrank back, trembling, bending their relentless advance against the surge of light. The tall man screamed, a wail of fury that enfolded Jenna but didn't consume her. Light broke the chains binding her friends, illuminating their paths back to existence beyond shadow. One by one, they fought back, comprehension illuminating their eyes like flames stoked by a fierce wind. We fight. Their voices echoed, harmonious against the backdrop of encroaching darkness. As the cacophony swelled, the tall man's face twisted in distraught fury, shadowy tendrils expelled as Jenna felt an overwhelming surge of power radiating within her sphere of light. Go back to the void. Jenna yelled, as the ground shook beneath their feet, splitting between the darkness and the light. The tall man staggered, the shadows twisting around him in panic, their power draining. But she didn't stop there. She tightened her grip and held her ground. You will not take us. You do not control us. With a final surge, light enveloped him, and the darkness shattered, leaving only echoes of despair that clawed at the air but found no purchase. Jenna watched as her friends stepped through, light breaking the flowing darkness and reclaiming their forms whole, bright, back from the brink. Laughter filled the air again. Lucy and Ben rushed into her arms, and for the first time in too long, warmth filled her heart, banishing the chill of despair. They stood together, ever the family against whatever darkness lingered. Yet, Jenna knew that Maplewood had its shadows. It was a reminder that though the fight had been won, vigilance remained a necessity. Together, they could face anything. Because they were united by a bond nothing could break, and as they turned back towards home, warmth radiated where once there was only fear, a promise of hope against the encroaching night. The shadows were gone for now, but she would stand strong, for her children, for her friends, for the love that always triumphed over darkness. Hope's light would be their flame, and nothing would dim that glow. Now, if you've resonated with this journey, you need to subscribe immediately. Don't miss out on more exclusive stories that explore the depths of emotion and thrill. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and help others find their way through the dark. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about the ending. Share your thoughts and connect with fellow fans. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this thrilling conclusion. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting this channel. Show your strength.